Now, here's 5-Star Wrestling Podcast Eddie Valiant with Eddie Valiant's Hot Take.
Welcome, everybody, to another exciting edition of Eddie Valiant's Hot Take. This is episode 9, and we are here to rock and roll this week because the holidays are vastly approaching. And who knows how much time we're really going to have left in 2019 to really talk about wrestling, right? I want to start the show off by taking the time to do some thank yous and maybe a little bit of, some discrepancies that I may have in professional wrestling that is happening as we speak. So first, I want to thank Beyond Wrestling. I want to thank Jay Freddy for putting his body on the line week in and week out. He didn't have to appear on this past week's episode of Uncharted Territory, but the man showed up, and despite taking a nasty fall from the top rope, he was okay. He looked like he was joking around. So I just want to take the time to thank Jay Freddy for doing that. We rarely ever take the time to really thank these guys who put their bodies on the line week in, week out, whether it be AEW, WWE, NXT, Ring of Honor, Dragon Gate, New Japan, Black Label Pro, Beyond Wrestling, XWA, you name it. If they put their bodies on the line, then they deserve a thank you from me, especially if they work hard. And you can definitely tell Jay Freddy has improved so much, so thank you, Jay Freddy. Thank you for also to Beyond Wrestling for immediately cutting away and kind of keeping it to the point where, you know what, you don't need to know what is going on, what they're saying to him, what it looks like until it's necessary. So thank you to Beyond Wrestling for that. I also want to take the time to thank Cody Rhodes, who has just been lighting it up on promos. And this past week, he mentioned Beyond Wrestling. He mentioned Bar Wrestling. It took a lot of balls. And that's something not every company would ever do, right? Mention indie companies on their live broadcasts on national television. That's certainly not something that WWE would do unless it was, Progress or, whatever. Point being, that was a great speech, a great promo, and just shows how above Cody Rhodes is from everybody else. I also want to thank Juicy Josh for bringing this to my attention. Apparently, the WWE has not only released Sin Cara, they have also finally released Luke Harper from his WWE contract. Hopefully, that means we can see him flourish as Brody Lee, and whether it be in AEW, whether it means he decides to go back to the Indies for a little while, whether it means he's going to New Japan, whatever it may be, it's going to be great to see Brody Lee really utilize his skills because he's an unbelievable wrestler. Luke was being held way back in the WWE, and it's unfortunate because Vince was an idiot and couldn't understand what he had on his hands with Luke Harper. Sin Cara, on the other hand, that is one release that I'm going to be honest with you guys, I could care less. I never really liked the Sin Cara character, to be perfectly honest. So him being released doesn't really make a huge difference for me. I mean, I'm sure Unico will figure out what to do with the rest of his career, and I'll look forward to seeing whether he shows up in AEW or if he goes back to AAA or CMLL. We'll see. Now I want to go through some discrepancies that I had with professional wrestling this week. And one of those has to be just everything they're doing on SmackDown. I mean, come on now. And not to mention that WWE TLC looks like the most uninteresting pay-per-view of all time, let me tell you. You look at some of the matches, Roman Reigns versus King Corbin and a tables, ladders, and chairs match. We really don't need to see that. You got the New Day versus the Revival once again. You got Bray Wyatt versus The Miz. Really? As The Miz would say, really? Really? And then Aleister Black versus Buddy Murphy being the only match on that card that looks anything interesting. And you know that's going to be a superstar match, right? But other than that, those are all television matches. We see those every week on SmackDown and Raw. So I don't get what the WWE is doing going into TLC. It's probably going to be one of the most uninteresting pay-per-views of all time. But to be perfectly honest, I mean, that's where the WWE is kind of lacking, is in real storylines and everything, and real solid crap. I mean, the one thing I'm interested in seeing how it develops as it goes on is the whole Seth Rollins angle. Whether or not he is going to be the new Bret Hart remains to be seen. I don't know. I mean, I could definitely dig it. Obviously, they can't do it as a USA versus Canada thing, but it's obviously going to be, Seth being kind of pissed because all these NXT guys are coming along. So it should be interesting. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right, so one of the first things I want to talk about on this week's show is Alberto Del Rio, or the man formerly known as Alberto Del Rio, appeared on Combate Americas, which is a MMA show that's geared more towards the Latin community. And he fought Tito Ortiz, the Huntington Beach bad boy, in an MMA fight. Now, going into the fight, the stipulation was, and I guess there's a couple that go along with this. Apparently, if Tito Ortiz was to defeat Alberto El Patron Del Rio Rodriguez, he would then have control of, or he would have possession, I should say, of Del Rio's WWE Championship that he won, I believe, against CM Punk. I believe that's the championship title that he had, was after he had beaten Punk, and then obviously Punk went on to defeat him again, and that is when the historic 434-day title reign began. Began. But apparently that's the title, and so that was the stipulation right there. The other stipulation, so there were two of them when it had to do with Tito Ortiz. So if Tito Ortiz lost, I believe Del Rio would get his UFC championship. Also, Tito Ortiz promised that if Del Rio could make it past the first round, he would donate $50,000 to the charity of Del Rio's choice, or El Patron, or Rodriguez, whatever you want to call him, his choice. Now, the whole time before the fight started, I kept thinking to myself, like, man, this is just going to be complete crap. Tito Ortiz is not the guy you want to be in there with, especially if you haven't fought an MMA match in over 9 years, right? Because apparently Del Rio had a 9-5 record going into the fight. And Del Rio's a serious dude, man. He fought Mirko Krokop. Now, I can't really pronounce his actual last name. For a lot of people, they know him as Mirko Krokop, or something of that nature. And he actually fought this guy in Pride Entertainment when that was around. So Del Rio had a serious background in MMA. So there was no joke. But the problem was it had been 9 years since he entered the octagon. So he was definitely entering at sort of a disadvantage, because it had only been 1 year for Tito Ortiz, who fought Chuck Liddell in that joke of a third fight that those two had. Chuck Liddell should have never been in an octagon, that's for sure. But anyway, so it had been 1 year for Tito Ortiz. So now, let me ask you, who is in the better fighting shape? Now, I'm not saying that sports entertainment wrestlers are not in good shape, because they are in pretty good shape, but they're not in competing shape. CM Punk, no matter how much training he did before he fought Mickey Gall, was not in fighting shape. dude didn't even last a round and never even threw one punch, I don't even think, in that fight. And the same thing happened once again in this Del Rio Ortiz fight. Ortiz just locked up Del Rio, kept locking up, took him to the ground a bunch of times, and then eventually, 3 minutes and 1 second into the fight, he got him into the rear naked choke, and Del Rio tapped out. Now, funny thing is Ortiz didn't even let go for a couple seconds. You could see Del Rio tapping him the first time, and then emphatically tapping him, saying, "Come on, dude, I just fucking gave up. Like, let go." And that's basically what happened there. Kind of unbelievable, man. Ortiz is a badass, no doubt about it. I don't give a shit how old he is. He is a badass, and he's not your first fight, right? Look at Jake Hager, right? Jake Hager's taking it easy. I don't give a shit what you say. His first fight was against a guy who was 1-2. His second fight was against a guy who was 0-2. So these are both guys that are probably not ready to be in the octagon, or at least they're not at that point in their careers yet, right? The first guy, maybe never. The second guy, who knows? But Jake Hager has been taking it safe, right? Picking who he fights, build up enough confidence, then maybe he'll fight Tito Ortiz. Who knows, right? If I was Tito Ortiz, I'd be like, yo, give me all the sports entertainment guys. I'll beat the shit out of all of them. And that's no joke. Part of the appeal of this fight, too, was the spectacle that was behind it. Tito Ortiz coming out at first to Limp Bizkit, and then that switched into Real American Hero by Hulk Hogan, which, funny enough, earlier in the night during a UFC fight, another guy came out to a Real American Hero as well. So that's kind of funny that happened twice in one night in two different promotions. But anyway, so he comes out to a Real American Hero. He's wearing a Border Patrol hat, or I believe that might have been after the fight. But he's got Trump 2020 on his trunks. He's got an American flag with a Mexican flag on one side and American flag on the other side. And he's coming down, and you can tell the crowd is kind of booing him. There is a pro-Latino crowd there in Texas that is booing the shit out of him. And there is a pro-Trump crowd within that crowd that was cheering him, because all of a sudden the camera panned to a certain section and there's a bunch of guys wearing MAGA hats. So whatever the hell that was about, that was Tito Ortiz being the spectacle and putting on a show for everybody, and having quite the dilemma, being a Mexican American whose family probably immigrated to Los Angeles or to Huntington Beach, which I believe is in LA County or Orange County. So they probably immigrated there, or his family roots could be tied in California to when California was a part of Mexico. Who knows? I don't know. But it's quite the dilemma for Mr. Tito Ortiz. It is quite the dilemma for that man, being a Mexican American. Yeah, I kept thinking to myself, wow. But anyways, so yeah, for those of you, if you do not like Donald Trump, you're not going to like Tito Ortiz. I personally like Tito Ortiz. It took a lot of balls to do that. Now, whatever. And then after the fight, he's wearing the Border Patrol hat. He brings his kids into the ring. They're wearing Trump crap, and they're wearing the Living the American Dream, but in the Saturday Night Main Event style writing. He's got his Punisher logo with the Trump wig on it, and he's got his Border Patrol hat. He's playing up to the crowd too, so that's what that was all about. But much credit to Tito Ortiz for that. Alberto Del Rio didn't get 1 ounce of offense. The fight was kind of a joke. Now, whether he continues or decides to get back into the game, I don't know. I'm not so sure that Alberto Del Rio, Rodriguez, El Patron should do that to begin with. Before I get into my next topic, I just want to remind you guys that you can follow me on Twitter at Eddie Valiant 82. Again, that's Eddie Valiant 82. That's EDDIE. That's EDDIE, and then Valiant 82. That way you can follow me in whatever I tweet out on Twitter. You can also check out my blog page. It's mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. Again, mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. Mr. X's Punch Out, that's what it's called. There I do this thing called the top matches of the week. Every week I watch AEW, Dynamite, SmackDown, Raw, 205 Live, NXT on USA. I try to watch Ring of Honor. I try to watch Beyond Wrestling Uncharted Territory. I try to watch basically as much wrestling as I can possibly do in 1 week. I try. I love the sport of wrestling. I love sports entertainment. It's always been one of my favorite things. And every week I give you what I think are the best matches of the week. So again, that's mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. Can't stress it enough. If you want to know what I thought was the best of the week, you can go there. I want to give a special shout out to the Afterman, who had some great news this past week in his personal life. I'm not going to air it out. That's not for you to know. That's for him. He's a very private man. But I just want to say, Devin, congratulations. I kind of figured it was going to happen. So congrats. Enjoy. And, until I see you next time, my friend. Juicy Josh, I want to give him a shout out as well on the show. Love Juicy Josh. He's such a great member of the team, and so glad that I got to meet Juicy Josh, and I was able to share the microphone with him on many occasions. So with that being said, I am going to try my best as I can. Not guaranteeing you when it's going to come out, because I can't guarantee that. But I'm going to try my best on working on the best of 5 Star Wrestling Podcast. The show, give you all the best moments that ever happened. There are a lot of uncut moments. I still have all the uncut moments. That should be interesting, including Josh's death list. We'll see if that makes the show. But anyways, yeah, so I don't know when it's going to happen. I have to listen to 32 episodes, okay? That's 32 hours. So, we'll see. But I'm going to try my best to get the best of 5 Star Wrestling Podcast. I'm also going to try my best for you guys. We'll see. We'll see what happens, right? Hopefully this can spark a little bit of energy in some of these guys. I can't make any guarantees. I'm going to try to do more of these hot takes as much as I can. The only problem was the last week I was sick and I was losing my voice, so there was no point in me doing a podcast if I don't have a voice. You're not going to be able to hear me, and I don't think you're going to like this version right here. See, I don't think you're going to like that version, right? So I'm saving you guys from all of that. So I want to go over what I thought were the top 5 matches of the week. And if you don't think they're going to be dominated by AEW or NXT, you're out of your freaking mind. Because both shows were great. Jon Moxley, man, I gotta give a shout out to Moxley. I was not a fan of Dean Ambrose. He was definitely not my favorite member of the Shield. Seth Rollins was always my favorite member. I thought Seth's character was always there and all together. I thought Dean was just kind of... See, it's easy for Dean to complain that the WWE misused him, right? Because wasn't that his biggest complaint? Oh, you're crazy, so be crazy. And they always gave him what they thought was his idea of crazy. Or what they thought was crazy. Anyways, I can't blame them, because you know what? I didn't see his character really going anywhere as Dean Ambrose. And a lot of that stuff, I was like, yeah, I could see Dean Ambrose doing that on a weekly basis. Well, except for the cancer thing. But nonetheless, it was like his character was stale. and it had been stale for years on WWE programming. So I really believe, in my heart of hearts, that this version of him is the version that we should have had all along. Jon Moxley is who he was meant to be, and this guy is tearing it up. I cannot wait to see what he does in AEW going forward. He's done some tremendous things. His character is insane. That match with Kenny Omega was just out of this world, out of our minds. It further proves why I would never become a professional wrestler in the first place. It was all of that. So, John, keep doing what you're doing, man. I know you're probably not going to ever listen to this podcast, but just keep doing what you're doing. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to give you my top 5 matches of the week. And it was a hard week because there were a lot of good matches, lots of great matches, good matches, but nothing over the top spectacular other than these 5 matches. And remember, my weeks start on Friday and they end on Thursday. So this is reporting for last week. And at number 5, I really thought this was a great match. And it succeeded in a lot of ways. But I thought Roman Reigns versus Robert Roode that opened up Friday Night SmackDown was just spectacular. I thought both looked great. The outcome was fantastic. The aftermath was even better. I loved it. It definitely, unfortunately, sets up Corbin and Reigns, as we all know. But whatever. Roode really showed the kind of talent that he has. If they just spent a little more time on him. But whatever. Nonetheless, we move on. My number 4 match of the week goes all the way to 205 Live, which happened after that show, and it's Angel Garza versus Jack Gallagher. Phenomenal match between the both of them. If you did not see this, it was great. The action was fantastic. Garza is a star in the making, and I am liking where Gallagher is going, right? Gallagher obviously didn't win the match, but the aftermath is where I'm interested because I feel like a monstrous heel turn, or maybe just, this monstrous, I don't give a shit about anybody anymore attitude from Jack Gallagher is coming. And number 3, this shocked the hell out of me. We're going to move all the way to AEW Dynamite. And this shocked the hell out of me. I did not see this coming. So Hikaru Shida is the number 1 contender for the Women's Championship over in AEW. She took on newcomer Chris Statlander. Now, I had seen Statlander plenty of times at Beyond Wrestling. She's one of those examples of Beyond Wrestling and all the great, great things that company does. You can witness it right there firsthand. But Chris Statlander took on Hikaru Shida. The match was great, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Statlander pulls off the upset and defeats the number 1 contender. It was such an upset because she's not even ranked. She hit her Big Bang Theory driver to win that match. So congratulations, definitely, to Chris Statlander making an impact where it matters in AEW. We're going to stay on the same show, and we're just going to move to the main event. Number 2, Jon Moxley versus Joey Janela. I like this match a lot for the idea that, Janela's obviously not the biggest guy in the room, and we know that Moxley outsized him, but you can't measure heart and how big it is. And that's definitely what this match kind of portrayed, was even though he may not have, the size, and, he may not have the brains, but he definitely has the heart, and he fought his heart out against Moxley, who just terrorizes people in the ring. It's unbelievable. So that was number 2. My number 1 match of the week, we're going to go to NXT. It's the same night, except we're going for the 6-man tag match, which was Keith Lee, Dominik Dijakovic, and Tommaso Ciampa versus Roderick Strong, Adam Cole, and Kyle O'Reilly, in what was a coming out party yet again for Keith Lee. Bask in his glory. The dude is unfreaking believable. I will never forget the first time I ever saw Keith Lee in a wrestling match. It was XWA, and it was against David Starr, back when David Starr used to be cool. What a match that was. I mean, David Starr actually held his own against the big man, and he won by hitting a Canadian Destroyer onto Keith Lee. I'll never forget that. And then I saw Keith Lee at Beyond Wrestling, and I believe he took on Michael Elgin. I believe that was the match, and he won that, and it was unbelievable. You just knew this guy, the things he can do in the ring, you're like, how is this possible? This guy is over 300 pounds, well over 300 pounds, and he can do crap that 200-pounders can do. It's just not right. But, you knew the guy was going to be a star. And then all of a sudden, the WWE sign him. He goes to NXT. He doesn't get used for a while, but then all of a sudden, Survivor Series weekend, and even on NXT television, the dude is just phenomenal. Right? Sorry, AJ Styles, but the dude is phenomenal. He proved it right then and there why Keith Lee is the future of the WWE. And that's not to say that Dominik Dijakovic is not the future of the company either. Dominik is going to be there. Those two will have a great rivalry no matter where they are, whether it's in WWE or NXT. They'll do some great things. Obviously, Undisputed Era is Undisputed Era. We know that those guys are all capable of great things, and so on and so forth. But, yeah, that's my number one match. I'm definitely looking forward to this week's episode of NXT. I'm hoping they go in a certain direction, and I hope we get to see Keith Lee versus Adam Cole for the NXT Championship. That would be awesome. December 18th, I'm looking forward to that match when it happens. Rhea Ripley versus Shayna Baszler. That's going to be great. But that's going to do it for me here. This was Eddie Valiant's Hot Take. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at EddieValiant82. Again, that's at EddieValiant82. You can also check out the blog. It's mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. Again, mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. There you will see my top matches of the week. And you can even read my article on Alberto Del Rio El Patron Rodriguez versus Tito, the Huntington Beach bad boy Ortiz. Want to also send a congratulations out to Anthony Joshua for winning his rematch against Andy Ruiz. And a big shout out as well to one of my favorite tag teams, the Butcher and the Blade. They're on AEW. Check them out every Wednesday on AEW Dynamite. It should be awesome. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time right here on Eddie Valiant's Hot Take.